Okay, so by the time people are coming, let's have some initial discussion. Okay, some basic, very fundamental discussions. So, just open the ID. So, this is basically the ID, Eclipse ID that you are seeing, right? Just a second. Fine. So, this is the ID, right, on which we are going to work. This is called as the Eclipse ID. Some of the history of the ID is that 3.2 version was something that belongs to IBM, and then IBM donated it to the open source community, and then multiple vendors started building on top of the open source code. For example, BA WebLogic, they have built their own IDE, the complete workshop. On that, they have used 3.2. JBoss also made its IDE. There are some. These are. I mean, JBoss is something which is a free IDE. BA WebLogic, it comes in a complete suite, right? So it is of course a paid, which is comes with the server itself. IBM further enhanced its ID, and then it has once upon a time there used to be a suite called as Rational Rose. That was again dependent on this, but with many other things packaged together. Uh, Apart from these, many other packages, many other IDs are also there, which are paid IDs. They are developed on top of 3.2. So most of the companies I have seen in my early career that they usually either they purchase some kind of paid ID which is made up on top of the 3.2 versions, or sometimes they use whatever the current version is available, open source version, the most recent version. So in both the cases, I have seen most of the time encountering the Eclipse ID. That is the reason. That is the first reason why I have choose an ID, uh, Eclipse ID in particular. Otherwise, there are so many IDs which are very good. So you can choose whatever ID you like, but for the class and for the labs, we will be sticking to Eclipse ID. Also, it is important to work on IDE because it's not possible to work on a notepad, start compiling the program, see the problems that are coming, and then correcting them, then going back and then trying to run again, compile again, and run again. So this is something very tedious task, right? So this is typically not possible, rather not productive also. So that's the reason no one works without an ID. So that's why I suggest from the day one you start, just try to have an experience of compiling the code with Java compiler and Java interpreter once or twice, and then come to the IDE, because IDE itself has a learning curve. You will soon start knowing a little bit about shortcuts, all those shortcuts that are used in IDE, and a lot of benefits and features, right? So basically, IDE help us to develop the code in a faster pace, efficiently, and track the errors, compilation errors, and the bugs easily. Like for example, if I do any mistake, for example, if I just change the spelling of system, right? So on the background it is being compiled, right? So I get the compilation error right over here, that SYST This is something which cannot be resolved. That means Java doesn't knows what this keyword is because I've done a mistake, and then it is giving me certain fixes, right? uh, Only this fixes in particular which is useful to me or which is right for me. So if I click on it, it will make it correct. So such kind of benefits we will get with the ID, and we will soon see a lot of other uh, features of ID. So till now we have discussed uh, the basics of Java itself in four classes, and all the classes are recorded in lecture. Lectures are uploaded. So I have shared the link with you. Just go through it right from the installation till whatever we have done so far. That is the basic fundamental itself, and that has been demonstrated everything live. So particularly who are new, or who doesn't have a very good hand in any programming language, they should repeat the lectures a number of times to, and you can just keep a tablet or a phone playing the video and start coding, right? That will be a nice thing. Uh, I will advise if you can bring your laptops in the class, like Nicholas bought. So in that case, it will be good that if you want some time to practice something, you want to see something, so you can just stop me, let me know, and then you can do the things, and then I will proceed. But that depends upon you. Uh, so this area is called as Package Explorer, right? And this area is the pane, editor pane, where we type the code, right? Here you can see console. Here the output will appear. Like you want to print something, then whatever comes on the console that will come here instead, right? Uh, Here you can see the outline is there, right? That means if I am in the calculator class, it is showing me the outline. It is showing me the full package name in.ac.jamia Hamdard. You can revise the video lecture and understand what is the package we have discussed over there. Then inside this package, you can see this instruction is also over there. The first line in.ac.jamia Hamdard. This is the package. What it implies that you can know from the last recorded videos. And then this package has got a class calculator, the class which is open right now, and now it is displaying the variables, the x and the y variables, and the type after the colon in light gray. So they both are int and float respectively. And we have got methods. So whatever green that you see is typically, it means public, which is accessible from any scope, anywhere, right? In any class, from any class. Uh, this is not public. Triangle is not public. Sorry. If you see a circle, green circle, then it is public. This is default because I have not put a keyword over here. Let me just put a keyword and you see the change that happens. It becomes a small green circle, right? And this is triangle. That means it's a default. It's a default scope. If we put a keyword, so it has got, the Java has got all the three keywords that any other object-oriented programming language that you are familiar with. We have seen with that, like private, public, and protected, right? Apart from that, these three specifiers, they are called specifiers because these are the keywords. When we have got a keyword, we call it specifier, right? And these are called as access control specifier because they are going to tell us how these variables or these methods are going to be assessed within what restrictions, right? So public, private, protected are access specifier, right? And if I do not put any keyword, any specifier, then it is something called as default. So when I say specifier, visibility control specifier or access control specifier, both are the same thing. Visibility control specifier or access control specifier, both means the same thing, right? So there are three specifiers, just like any other language: public, private, and protected. But if I say what are the visibility controls in Java, so there are four visibility controls: public, private, and protected because they are visibility specifier, and the default. If I do not put any specifier, that means any keyword, right? So that is visibility control. It also has, this default also has some role to play in putting up the restriction how the variable or method could be used and what part of the code that could be used, right? Or in what part of the code that is visible or accessible. Okay, that is why we call it accessibility specifier or visibility specifier, visibility control, right? So if someone asks you what are the visibility control in Java, you say there are three in particular: public, private, and protected. But if you ask about the visibility control, then there are four in total. Along with three, there is also a default when we do not put any keyword, right? So the primitive data type, primitive means the one which exists from a very very long time. That means from all languages which existed even before the Java, right? That is something primitive, right? So they are basically int, float, or you can see their keywords in this magenta color, right? And then we have got char, c for example, right? Right, what is the difference between this and this line? Okay. Okay. One difference is these both int and float are numeric. Int is non-decimal numeric. Float is a decimal numeric. Char is just a single character, right? One difference. Anything else regarding the line that I have coded apart from the nature of the primitive variables? The first two variables not only are declared, but some value are also assigned to them, right? But for this character C, it's only declared. The value is not assigned yet, right? Okay. Then we have got Boolean that takes two values, true and false. It's not like C or C++, which may take the value 0 or 1 also. And many other languages, in fact, takes the value 0 and 1. It takes only true and false. That means if I want to assign a value true, then I have to type true. And you can see this true also comes in magenta color because it's one of the defined keywords, right? Similarly, false, right? So it has got just two values. If you try to check true with one, that will be an error. That will be a problem, right? Then we have got let's come to the number which doesn't have decimals. So int is one of those type, smaller in size than int, but a numerical value without decimal. The smallest one is byte, right? Let me write the size also. The size of the byte is, what is the problem it is showing? Duplicate field. Okay, b I have used the values. Okay, okay. By, let me say by. Okay, by. So the size of the byte is 1 byte or 8 bits, right? Then larger than byte, and the nature is what? It's numeric, non-decimal, non-fractional value, right? Non-fractional value. Similarly, we have got short say s, right? And it is 2 bytes or 16 bits, and it's again a numeric non-decimal or non-fractional value. Okay, it holds. So this is a kind of bucket, right? This bucket, the first bucket can hold only a value of size 8 bits. Okay, and that must be a non-decimal numeric value. Okay, like 123, for example. Okay, then we have got int. Int is 4 bytes. Am I correct? 4 bytes. That means 32 bits, and it's again a numeric non-decimal. Just copy it and paste it over here. Control C, numeric non- non-decimal. Okay. Then numeric which are decimal. So we have got float, right? It's again 4 bytes or 32 bits, numeric and fractional or decimal, fractional or decimal, or with decimals. Okay. One of the numeric values that I forgot over here is long. Long L is equal to 7. Okay, and it is 8 bytes, comma 64 bits, numeric non hyphen decimal. Okay, I will prefer to put a small or a gas L after it to indicate it's a long value, right? Why? Because B, Y, S, X, and L, these are the variable, these are the bucket. But the values that we are going to assign, for example, for BY, let me say we are assigning 34, right? So these values for short, let's say we are assigning 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So these values are constant. The values that we are putting in the bucket, these values are constant, right? All numeric. But those constants, if they have four different types of possibilities, that means they could be byte, they could be short, they could be int, and they could be long. We have, or rather, Java compiler has to settle on one type. So the default type for a non-numeric integer, non-numeric value is integer, that is 4 bytes, right? So because 4 byte is something larger than short and byte. So it doesn't matter if we do not give a symbol, rather we do not have a a specific keyword for it or a symbol for it to indicate that it's short and byte. The size matters, right? If something from a larger bucket of 32-bit is put into a smaller bucket of say 16-bit, that's perfectly okay. And if that is put into a even smaller bucket of 8 bits, right, that is also okay, right? So in both the conditions, we do not have to specify anything. But if I if I am declaring a long variable and I am putting a value 7, 7 is typically in the range of byte, right? But by default, it's a constant and it will pick up a default type as integer. So when I will try to put it into L, it has silently taken it, because of course looking at the size, it was convinced that okay, no problem, right? But for that matter, it's preferable that we indicate either using a small l or capital L that this is not an integer but a long value, so that you reserve the size. Tomorrow it's a variable. Tomorrow I can put some larger value into it, right? Okay. Then similarly, we have got float f. Now float f is again a 32 bits, a fractional number. So it looks like something 3986.57843. Okay, something like this. Okay, and let me just leave it with the error for a while, and then we have got a similar fractional value with the type double, sorry, double. D is equal to, say, some value dot some value, right? So this is actually double is, as it says, it's double from the float. So there are just two types of fractional data types. One is primitive data type, that is float and double, right? So 8 bits, 8 bytes, 64 bits, and fractional or with decimals. Okay. So here, see what happens is, in these two type, f is a variable, d is a variable, but what is on the right side is a constant, right? Once it is assigned to the variable, it becomes the value of a variable, right? But as of now, if I look at it in isolation, it's a constant, right? It's a number, just a number, right? So a decimal number, fractional number. So by default, in a float, these are called floating point numbers, even though the name is double for another type with a 64-bit size, but we call them as an indication of the nature that both are floating point numbers. What does floating point means? Why we call it floating point numbers? Interview question. बहुत basic question पूछते हैं कभी कभी. See, we call them floating point numbers because the number before this dot is 3986 is fixed, right? But the number after the decimal is not fixed. Or I can just even put 0000, it may go to a large value, right? It may go to a large value. That's why we call it a floating point number. Same goes with the double value. Okay. And the default between float and double is double itself. So the larger value is default. So that means this value is considered to be a double value. And when we try to assign it to a small box, which is a floating point number, then we must indicate it with a small f or capital F, that no, it's not a double value, but it's a floating point number, right? Just like we did in long value. Okay. So how many data type we have discussed? Byte, short, int, long, 4, 5, 6, and 7 and 8. All 8 we have discussed, right? Then something we know, which is called as a string. Str is equal to, under double quotes, hello, for example, right? So what is a string? Is it a primitive data type? It's not a primitive data type, it's a class. We call it derived data type or user defined data type, right? Just that we have not created this class, the Java developers have created already and given us to use it, right? So you can see the color of all these primitive data type, they have the keyword and the color is magenta color, but it doesn't have a color, right? It starts with a capital S. So convention is that when you write a class, right, the first character of the name of the class should be in capital letter. That is a convention, not a syntax or a rule, right? Even if, for example, this is a calculator, if I would have given it small c, there is no problem in that, no harm in that. But that's against the convention. That's against the general assumption that all the Java developers across the universe follow. And then when you go to the code review, definitely anyone from the code review team will just force you to work as per the convention. Okay, this will not be acceptable, right? Even though it looks like a very small thing, but they will not accept it, and there are reasons, there are genuine reasons for it. Okay, we'll see soon. And let's say if a name of the class is, say for example, more than one words. Let me say if it is scientific calculator. No, scientific calculator. Then there are two words. Each first character of each word is in caps. So if there are three words, then each first character of the all the three words are in caps. That's the convention. Okay. It's giving me error because the name of the class, the file name is calculator. So that's a mismatch. So that's giving me a error, right? Camel case is something which is given to the name of the variable and the methods. Both variables and the methods are used in camel case. What is a camel case? For example, I want to declare a variable by the name, say string, not str but student student name, right? And then let me say, okay. So it should not be caps. It should be small. So the first word is student, the second word name, right? The first character of the first word of a variable and a method. In both the cases, they must be with a small letter, and the subsequent first character of every subsequent word should be in caps. So n is in caps. So this is how we identify that it's not a name of a class, but it's a name of a variable or a method. Okay. Okay. So all these eight data types are the primitive data types. So let me just put a comment over here. These are primitive data types in Java. Okay. A string is user defined or a derived, user defined or derived data type. Why it is called as derived data type? यूजर यूजर डिफाइन तो ये बताता है कि आपने उसको खुद डिफाइन किया है, राइट? व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड डिराइव्ड? प्रिमिटिव डाटा टाइप को ही यूज करके डिराइव किया हुआ है. फॉर एग्जांपल, a string is a sequence of characters, right? So again a primitive data type is being used. If I declare a class like a student, then a student will have a name which is again a string, which is again composed of characters. We have got age, maybe integer, right? We have got say for example uh, pass out or current student, which could be a boolean, and so on, right? So every data type which accumulates to create a user defined data type are basically somehow linked to the primitive data type. So that's why we call them as user defined data type. Okay. So for all these primitive data types, we have got uh, for each and every primitive data type we have got a class which is just equivalent to it, right? For example, byte, we have seen the first is byte, right? So we even have got a class byte with byte B, right? So what is the problem? Okay, again duplicate. Okay, byte where, right? Camel case, right? We are following the camel case. Byte where. Okay. Then for short, see all the class names are starting with cap letter. They are not turning to a magenta class. So these are not the keywords, like just like primitive type. Okay, rather unlike primitive type. Okay, so we will say short where. We are just declaring. We are not assigning any value to them, right? Then int. So for it we have got integer, right? Int where, not just int, right? Fine. Then we have got long. So we have got long with capital L. Long where. Fine. Then we have got for decimal or fractional numbers we have got float. Float where. So wherever I am putting where, that is an indication that I'm trying to demonstrate the corresponding class for that primitive type. Okay, class instance, right? And then we have got double double where. Okay, then we have got what is char, right? So what is for char? Character. Character. Spelling is correct or wrong? Character. See, it's in the java.lang package, right? Character. char char where, right? Okay. Then we have got boolean. Boolean. Bool where, right? So in total, these are 8 classes, each corresponding to one primitive data type. Okay. Now suppose I have declared by to be equal to 34. By to be equal to 34. And then I want to assign by to it. Okay. Even though this is an instance of a class, this is a reference variable, right? This is a reference variable. And that means if there is a class, so how many of you are not aware with class? What is a class? Everyone familiar with class, right? Okay. So if there is a class, that means this is a reference variable, and this reference variable is going to hold the address for a real object that is going to stay in the heap, right? So that real object will encapsulate, because it's a byte in nature, so that will encapsulate a primitive byte value inside it. It's a kind of a these classes in fact are called as wrapper classes. Wrapper. Let me just give the name. Wrapper classes. Wrapper classes. As the name indicates, they are the wrapper over the primitive data types, right? So that means if I am declaring something as with capital B byte, then that is wrapping a primitive byte. Okay, and then I can just assign the value to it, right? Either from a primitive to an instance variable of a byte class, or I can also say by is equal to the value that we have just received, right? Let me just copy it and paste again. So it's like I'm assigning and I'm reassigning again back to the same variable, right? So what's the problem? Yes. क्या कह रहा है, कुछ कह नहीं रहा है? अच्छा, ये एक्चुअली मैं कर रहा हूँ ना, मैं किसी मेथड में नहीं कर रहा हूँ एक्चुअली. That could be the reason. नहीं, something else is there. Syntax error, token expected. क्या कुछ गलती दिख रही है? आईडी की प्रॉब्लम लग रही है. ऐसा होना तो नहीं चाहिए. चलो. Anyways. मेरे ख्याल से अभी एक बार फिर से हम इसको लिख देंगे ना हटा के, ये शायद चला जाएगा। नहीं है, ऊपर जा रहा है ये। हाँ, उसी से कुछ इसने लिया है, कुछ गड़बड़ लिया है। समटाइम इट हैपेंस विद द आईडी। Okay, no worries. We will see it later on, right? So that means the primitive variables could be assigned to the reference variable of their wrapper classes, and from the wrapper classes, the wrapper class reference variable could be assigned to the variable of the primitive class. And in fact, behind the scene, it means just the value is being picked from one type to the and placed to the other type or given to the other type. Okay, from the primitive to the wrapper classes or from the wrapper classes to the primitive classes, right? So when the value goes from the primitive type to the wrapper type, then we call them as auto boxing. Auto boxing. We are wrapping in a box, right? So we call them auto boxing. Okay. When the value goes from a primitive type to a wrapper type, then we call them auto boxing. Fine. And just opposite to it, when we assign a value from a wrapper type instance variable or reference variable to a primitive variable name, right, then we call it auto unboxing. That means from a object, the primitive value is taken out and then placed to a primitive variable, assigned to a primitive variable which is again a box, right, or primitive in nature. Okay, that's clear. Okay, so what is auto boxing and what is an auto unboxing? So this feature was actually introduced in Java 1.5. ठीक है, लेट बैक, वेरी लेट। ठीक है, रियल वर्ल्ड में बेनिफिट ये है कि आपको इसको देखो, जब किसी चीज़ को ऑब्जेक्ट में कन्वर्ट करना पड़ता है, देन यू हैव टू डू समथिंग, राइट? You do not have to worry about the background, what must be happening, right? Simply, अब देखो, in Java the operators are not overloaded. You cannot overload a operator, but implicitly they have done it, like string. And for the wrapper classes, you have got this equal to overloaded. That means you can simply assign. Otherwise, the right way would have been like, if you are creating a string class, then do it like this: string str is equal to new, just like any other object. You use the new keyword to create a new object, and then say string string, and then pass value inside it, right? Say uh, my name, for example. Okay, anything, right? Or just similarly for the wrapper class also, if I'm saying integer, right? Integer I is equal to, I can assign 9 also, that's perfectly fine. Or I can say new integer, and inside it I will put 9, and that's the right way. But you see a cross coming over here. What does cross means? In any technology, when you're using, if the id, it will only be shown by the id. आप नोटपैड में लिख रहे हैं तो वहां आपको क्रॉस नहीं दिखेगा, राइट? नोटपैड थोड़ा दिखाएगा आपको क्रॉस, राइट? ये तो आईडी दिखा रहा है ना। अगर आईडी आपको दिखा रहा है तो आईडी फिगर आउट कर ले रहा है कि ये जो आप इंटीजर, ये जो मैं यूज कर रहा हूँ, ये क्या है? कंस्ट्रक्टर है। फॉर दोज हु नो, and those who do not know, just wait, we will see it later on. ठीक? It's a constructor. What the instruction says: create a new object calling a constructor which takes one parameter, right? This is what it means, right? ठीक है, अगर दो पैरामीटर होते या एम्प्टी पैरामीटर होते तो क्या कहते हैं? क्रिएट अ ऑब्जेक्ट by invoking a no or constructor or a to or constructor and so on, right? So it's a constructor, it's a call to the constructor. ठीक है, it's not the name of the class. The name of the class is here in the type declaration. Here on the right side, it's not the name of the class. It's actually calling the constructor. It's a call to the constructor. Okay, it's a call to the constructor. So that when the program runs, the I is declared by the type integer, and the value, when it comes to the assigning the value, it will create a new object by calling a constructor which takes a single parameter, and the argument that is placed inside the parameter is 9. Right? This is what it means, right? And the line strike outline, it means that this particular way of writing code, either the function or the constructor, is deprecated. That means This was a good thing to do earlier, but now a better solution exists. And you should rather not use this. Although if you use this, not a problem, because of the backward compatibility, the compiler will accept it. It will not show you a compilation error. But this is not a nicer way to do it, right? Sometimes the functions or the methods are deprecated because of the performance reasons. They have a better optimized version. Sometimes like this constructor is deprecated because you have got directly an overloaded version of wrapper class and you just say 9. That is what is expected. ठीक है बस क्लियर हो गई fine. We will discuss more about autoboxing and unboxing when we start the code, and I will point out where we are using these things, right? Okay. Any question till now? भाई जो पीछे बैठे हैं पीछे क्यों बैठ रहे हैं आप लोग आगे आ जाओ ना भाई पीछे जो 4 लोग बैठे हैं आप आगे आओ पहले आप चारों आगे आओ तो पूरी जगह खाली है पीछे कौन बैठता है जिसको महंगा टिकट ना मिल पाए आ जाओ अच्छा इधर 2 लोग भी छुपे हैं क्या आ जाओ भाई पीछे वाले आगे आ जाओ सारे पीछे वाले आगे आ जाओ बहुत जगह है क्या नाम है आप दोनों का आप दोनों भी आ जाओ भाई खामखा रोज़ा में यार मैं भी चिल्लाऊंगा तेज आवाज में क्या फायदा है उससे ये बोल रहा है। यार बोलना हमें है तुम्हें क्या टेंशन नहीं है बताओ ठीक है भाई so this was uh, introduction to the primitive type as well as wrapper classes we will soon see that why wrapper classes are there what is the purpose of their existence and where and how they are used ठीक है in later classes as of now just know that for every primitive type there is a class that exists and the value that could be the value that is held by primitive or the wrapper class those could be interchanged just by putting an equal to in between right तो अभी काम करते हैं लेट्स डू एन एक्सरसाइज ठीक है uh, still I know most of you are familiar with what is the class and what is the object I will try prefer to have a little discussion on it because I believe some of the people are there who are not from the Java background so just for the sake of those people let me just discuss and then we will move to exercise so we typically know what is the primitive type right so a class is you can say is a kind of a specification what is a specification or a description you describe something right say for example if I say a complex ब्लूप्रिंट कहना ठीक है ब्लूप्रिंट अपनी जगह है टिपिकल टेक्स्ट बुक में आपको ब्लूप्रिंट मिलेगा ठीक है आई विल गिव यू अ बेटर डिफिनेशन देन दैट ठीक है सो इट्स ओके इट्स अ ब्लूप्रिंट देयर नथिंग रॉन्ग इन दैट ठीक है तो ब्लूप्रिंट का मतलब होता क्या एक्चुअली हाँ जो हम एक नक्शा बनाते हैं या अगर ज़्यादा मतलब रियलिस्टिक एग्जांपल दो तो आप ईंटे के भट्टे पे गए होंगे ना आपने देखा होगा सांचे रखे होते हैं राइट इसमें उसका नाम भी खुदा होता है हाँ, हाँ। तो सारे ब्रिक्स उसमें ढाले जाते हैं, राइट? वो साँचा जो है उसकी लेंथ, विड्थ, डायमेंशंस, हाइट एवरीथिंग इज़ डिफाइंड। उसमें क्या लोगो जाना है वो सब डिफाइंड होता है, राइट? एक साँचे को यूज़ करके आप 100 ब्रिक्स बना लो, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, राइट? So that is a kind of a specification, right? Similarly, when we define a specification or description, what we call it interchangeably. So let me give it a name, complex number, right? So we use a keyword with a small c class. This C is capital, this C and is capital as per the convention, not as per the rule, right? Right. So class complex number. This is indicates, and what we call it in general, complex number is a name. What we call it? Identifier. Identifier. Any name that is given to a class or a function or a variable in general, it is said that it represents an identifier. It's an identifier. It identifies something, right? Okay. So we start with the specification, the class with a curly braces and end with a curly braces, right? And then within this specification, we have got, because it's a what we call it. It's a user defined data type now. It's a specification. So it will have another user defined data type in it, or primitive data type in it. So it will be composed of, it will be made up of a number of probably a primitive data types and user defined data types. So for complex number, as the definition, mathematical definition say, we have got two integers, the imaginary part and the real part, right? So if we say int real, so that will be one part, int imaginary, that is going to be the second part, right? Fine. And then we might have some methods on it which will work on it, right? For example, add two numbers. Okay. I'm just writing it from just taking an example. It could be anything, right? So, and let me say this method is public method. Okay. What is the type of visibility control of these real and imaginary data types? Not the type, visibility control of default, because we have not specified a name, so they are by default, right? The difference we will see later. Okay. As of now, just know that there are three kinds of visibility controls or visibility specifiers. Visibility specifier, not visibility control. Visibility specifiers. Specifier means they have the keywords. This is public, private, and protected, just like any other language. And if we talk about visibility control, it's for public, private, protected, and default. Default doesn't have a specifier. It doesn't have a keyword, but it has the role to play in visibility control, right? Okay. So public, let me say these two numbers. What type of data type it should return? It is integer. It is going to add two numbers, and this will work on complex numbers, so that means it is going to add two complex numbers, so it should return a complex number in turn, right? तो जैसे हम यहाँ इंटीजर लगाते हैं एज अ रिटर्न टाइप, इसकी जगह हम यहाँ पे सीधे कॉम्प्लेक्स लगा देंगे, इसी क्लास में डिफाइन कर रहे हैं, इसी क्लास में लगा देंगे, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, फाइन, सेम चीज। तो जो रिटर्न होगा उसका भी दो पार्ट होगा, रियल होगा, इमेजिनरी होगा। दो नंबर अगर हम पास कर रहे हैं कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर, तो रियल पार्ट रियल से ऐड होगा, इमेजिनरी पार्ट इमेजिनरी से ऐड होगा, दोनों चीज को इंक्लूड करते हुए जो चीज रिटर्न होगी दैट इज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर, फाइन, क्लियर है? अब इसमें जब ऐड कर रहा है दो नंबर, तो जैसे इंट वैल्यू के लिए ऐड लेते थे, तो क्या उसमें दो पैरामीटर डिस्प्ले करते थे, इंट एक्स कॉमा इंट वाई, राइट? सो सिमिलरली वी कैन से कॉम्प्लेक्स number 1x and complex number y. Now it's a different thing that how we are going to add these two numbers. We may add real number to real number and imaginary number to imaginary number, and then we will give a format, and then we can return it accordingly, right? It's a different thing. So I'm not getting into the code, just giving the idea. Then that basically when you give a description or when you give a specification in the form of a class for a user defined data type, then you do two things. First is you define the data part. You define the data part. So these are the data part. And then you may define one or more methods on it, right? Even you choose to not define a method, that is also perfectly all right. So you may define one or more, or zero or more, rather I should say, methods on it which will work on this data type, right? Correct? अच्छा मान लो, just to test your understanding, सी प्लस प्लस की या जावा की अंडरस्टैंडिंग अगर होगी तब आप बता पाएंगे ये क्वेश्चन, जो लोग नहीं जानते हैं उनके लिए क्वेश्चन नहीं है, यू दे विल हैव टू वेट फॉर द लेटर क्लासेस। मान लो I have given the name add two numbers and my intention is to add two numbers, and instead of two numbers I am passing, let me just cut it from here, I'm rewriting this method public complex add two numbers, and I'm just passing one number. Okay, so this is the overloaded version of this method. They both share the same name, but the number of the parameter differ here in this case. The condition for overloading is what? Either the type of the parameter should differ or the number of parameters should differ. Right? Either of the two. Right? Now, is it possible for me to just pass one number and do an addition operation? Possible. भाई एक कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर तो ये है जिसका रियल इमेजिनरी पार्ट उसी के अंदर स्टेट में मौजूद है, राइट? एक आप पास कर रहे हो तो आप क्या कह सकते हो? दिस डॉट रियल, यानी ये वाला, प्लस एक्स डॉट रियल। ठीक है, हो सकता है ना? ये हो गया रियल ऑफ रिजल्ट। ठीक है, ये कह सकते हैं ना हम। सिमिलरली इमेजिनरी के भी हम कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, कोई किसी को अगर एक मेथड पास कर एक कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर पास करना है तो एक कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर पास कर देगा, किसी को दो पास करना है तो दो पास कर देगा, राइट? ठीक है, वी विल हैव a design difference in these two kinds of methods that we will see in later classes. These two classes will be designed differently, little differently, purposefully, right? ठीक है, as of now we are not going to get into this. ठीक है, अभी हम सिंपली एक ही तरीके से हमने कर दिया। ठीक है, so we define a specification of a user defined data type or a derived data type that may contain one or more primitive or another user defined data type, and that's basically the data. And then we may have methods, what we call as function in C or C++. So these methods, they are meant to operate on the data types or to the data which are being passed to it. ठीक है, अब जब हमें इसको यूज करना है तो हम क्या करेंगे, किसी और क्लास में फॉर एग्जांपल से क्लास माई कैलकुलेटर, ठीक है, ये कैलकुलेटर लिख देते हैं। ठीक है, कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर को भी ऐड करने की कैपेबिलिटी है इसके अंदर। ठीक है, लेट्स अज्यूम कैलकुलेटर। ठीक है, एंड इसके अंदर क्या हो रहा है कि आप जब ऐड मेथड प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, then depending out on what the kind of parameter that you want to pass, the operation you may perform। ठीक है, या सिंपली हम कह रहे हैं कि अगर हम से फॉर एग्जांपल हम इसमें ओवरलोडेड मेथड प्रोवाइड कर देंगे जिसमें कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर भी आप ऐड कर सकते हैं, इंटीजर वैल्यू भी ऐड कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, और आप इसमें फ्लोट वैल्यू भी ऐड कर सकते हैं। ठीक है, तो डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ डिफरेंट ओवरलोडेड मेथड्स ऐड के, यानी ऐड के डिफरेंट वर्जन्स हम इसमें लिख सकते हैं, राइट? सो इट इज गोइंग टू यूज दिस definition or description or specification, right? And if we need to create an instance from somewhere where we need to pass on the real and the imaginary part of it, so that part of the code will be like this: complex, say for example c1 is the name of the variable that is going to refer to the object, is equal to new complex. Then we may pass some real part to it, say for example 2, some imaginary part to it, say for example 5, right? ठीक है, ये करेक्ट है, ऐसा कुछ कर सकते हैं। कंस्ट्रक्टर में डिफाइन नहीं करा है, जब हम समझेंगे तो हम करेंगे, ऐसे कर सकते हैं, राइट? ओके, सो वी कैन क्रिएट अ नंबर ऑफ सच कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर C1 से C100 तक हमने बना लिया, 100 बना लिया, राइट? जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल अगर मैं चेयर की बात करूं तो चेयर का हम एक स्पेसिफिकेशन देंगे कि भाई चेयर के इस चेयर पे एक ही लेग है, राइट? अदरवाइज इट कुड बी 4 लेग। ठीक है, तो जिस टाइप का स्पेसिफिकेशन देंगे उस टाइप की हम चेयर बनाएंगे। तो दिस हैज वन लेग, वन बैक, वन हैंड राइटिंग बोर्ड, देन वन बेस, the dimensions of the base, the dimensions of the bag, its shape like curve, and then we can create a number of instances. So all these chairs are the instances of the same specification. तो कंपनी के पास स्पेसिफिकेशन होगा कि उसको बनाना किस डायमेंशन का कैसा बनाना है, राइट? और उस स्पेसिफिकेशन को यूज करके उसने इतनी सारी चेयर बना दी, राइट? बट द चेयर इज समथिंग विच इज गोइंग टू ऑक्यूपाई ए स्पेस. Specification is something, or a definition is something which is just a conceptual thing, right? It's a conceptual thing. ठीक है, आपने पेपर में लिख दिया, स्पेसिफिकेशन हो गया, राइट? लेकिन जब उसका ऑब्जेक्ट बनेगा तो वो स्पेस ऑक्यूपाई करेगा. In software application, if I am creating an object out of it or an instance of it, both are the same thing, right? So that means it is also going to occupy some space, but where? In the heap. In the heap, that is the largest chunk of the memory, right? So it's called as heap. So objects are going to store the values in the heap. बात समझ में आ रही है? तो मान लीजिए हमने C1 C100 ऐसे हमने 100 ऑब्जेक्ट्स बना लिए. तो इसका मतलब जो आपका हीप होगा, this is, let me say, this is a heap, a very large chunk of memory which is assigned for a particular program. When you start the program with the keyword Java, that means you assign a JVM to that particular program. Then a portion of the heap is reserved for that particular program. So in that program, we have created 100 instances of complex numbers. So there will be space reserved for those 100 instances, like this. It has a label C1, C2, C3, and so on, C100, right? And within each space that is being occupied in the heap, we have got two integer types. One is has got the name real, one has got the name imaginary, right? So the real part is an integer type, imaginary part is also an same. If you want, we can make it float also, right? So if it is integer type, so what is the total space occupied by one object that we have created by the name C1? 4 plus 4, 8 bytes, right? Sometimes it is possible to calculate, right? Sometimes it is not possible to calculate. ठीक है, लाइक स्ट्रिंग का स्पेस जो है उस वक्त जितने कैरेक्टर को होल्ड कर रहा है उस कैरेक्टर के हिसाब से आप काउंट करेंगे, ठीक है? प्लस सम ओवरहेड हो सकता है उसको मेंटेन करने के लिए, ठीक है? तो उस वक्त वो होगा जब वैल्यू चेंज हो जाएगी तब चेंज हो जाएगा, राइट? बट इंटीजर का जो स्पेस है वो तो 4 बाइट है, तो 4 बाइट ही रहेगा हर हाल में, ठीक है? करेक्ट. तो हमने कहा कि इसकी हमें जो स्पेस हमने रिजर्व करी है, वी नो दैट इट्स ऑफ 8 बाइट्स ओनली, राइट? So if we have created 100 objects, then the total space that we need is 100 into 8, that is 800 bytes. ठीक है, so sometimes it is possible to calculate the exact space required by these objects in the memory. ठीक है, clear है? Any questions till here? ओके, तो एक्सरसाइज मेरे ख्याल से अगले में ही कराएंगे क्योंकि लंबा हो जाएगा, वो पूरी एक क्लास लेगा एक्सरसाइज. थोड़ी छोटी छोटी चीजें और डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, ठीक है? So let's try to see some example of declaring a class and then creating an instance out of it. ठीक है? So those who are today coming for the first class, let me demonstrate them. The first thing that we need to do is create a Java project. Okay, in the package explorer we will right click, then new, and then Java project. MSc batch has also joined your batch, right? So in that case, so let me say demo uh, data type. ठीक है? Next, finish. So a project will be created, right? And then once the project is created, you can see there is a JRE library, right? It's just a reference. If you go into the folder in the workspace, you won't find a folder structure JRE or any of the these jar files over there. It's just a kind of a reference, right? And it will contain all the jar files, .jar extension files. You can see the name of the extension of the file is grt-fs.jar, right? So these are the files which are required for running an application in Java. They are part of the JRE, Java Runtime Environment, right? And the kind of the container that basically runs it is called as JVM, Java Virtual Machine, that takes the control of running the piece of the program or code or application, whatever we say. So SRC is the folder where we are going to keep our source code. So just let me right click on it and create some package. Okay, तो पैकेज में मेरा जो टिपिकल जो फेवरेट कहते हैं मैं यूआरएल का नाम देता हूँ, बट स्टिल लेट मी से एज ऑफ नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू डेविएट फ्रॉम इट. सो लेट मी से डेमो डॉट डाटा टाइप. ठीक है, तो अब क्या होगा, इसके अंदर एसआरसी के अंदर दो फोल्डर बनेगा. जब हम वर्क स्पेस में जाकर के चेक करेंगे तो उसमें दो फोल्डर हमको दिखेगा. एसआरसी फोल्डर के अंदर दो फोल्डर फिजिकल फोल्डर बन के आएगा, राइट. एक फोल्डर का नाम डेमो होगा, उसके अंदर क्या होगा, एसआरसी के अंदर डेमो फोल्डर, डेमो के अंदर डाटा टाइप फोल्डर. And now on this package structure, I will again create a new class this time, right? So let me say I am creating a class, say for example, complex number. See the convention. I am following the convention. That means C and N of the complex and the number part or the words are in caps, the first characters. I do not need main method for it, right? In whole application you may have 1,000 classes, but you may need a main method in just one class. Okay, so I'll just say finish. Okay, and then we have got two real and imaginary part. Let's assume they are integer as we have seen in the example. Okay, integer, real, and integer, imaginary, right? ठीक है, तो नाम हमेशा प्रॉपर दीजिए, नाम हमेशा प्रॉपर दीजिए जो एग्जैक्ट रिफ्लेक्ट करे क्या चीज़ है. अब रियल इमेजिनरी मैथमेटिकल टर्म है, तो यहाँ देखिए कोई भी समझ जाएगा कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर क्या है, रियल क्या है, इमेजिनरी क्या है, वेरिएबल क्या होल्ड कर रहा है, राइट. So these are the two parts. Now let me say that okay, so we have got two parts of a complex number, real and imaginary, and we are thinking, or we have plan to use this complex number in place of any variable, just like a primitive variable, right. A data type, a user defined data type. तो डाटा टाइप क्या होगा, वैल्यू वेरी करेगी. ठीक है, वेरिएबल है तो वेरी करेगी. वेरिएबल का मतलब आज कोई वैल्यू हम स्टोर कर रहे हैं, कल उसको हम हटा के दूसरी वैल्यू स्टोर कर दें. इट्स जस्ट लाइक ओपन बॉक्स, चीज उसमें डाला, कल को कोई किसी और चीज से रिप्लेस कर दिया, एंड सो ऑन, राइट. So that means we need to change the values of the real and imaginary part of a complex number. ठीक है, इनके पार्ट्स को हमें चेंज करना पड़ सकता है. Now I can do the convention that Java holds is for changing the value of a variable, real and imaginary, for example, for instance, the methods that I must define are termed as setter methods. Setter methods, they set the value of real and imaginary. Yeah, and the value which retrieve or read the value, they are called as getter methods. They are called as getter methods. तो कन्वेंशन क्या है कि रियल अगर नाम है वेरिएबल का, तो अगर मैं ऐसे लिखूं सेट आर कैपिटल, कैमल केस होना है ना, तो अब कैमल केस में जो दूसरा वर्ड शुरू हो रहा है वो कैपिटल हो जाएगा, राइट. रियल, सेट रियल, और इसमें मैं क्या पास करूंगा, इंट रियल, राइट, इंट रियल, फाइन. और ये मेथड कैसा होगा, पब्लिक होगा. क्या इसका कोई रिटर्न टाइप होगा, कोई नहीं होगा, वॉइड. क्यों, क्योंकि ये वैल्यू को सेट करने के लिए बना है, वैल्यू को रीड करने के लिए बना नहीं है. जो मेथड रीड करने के लिए हम जो गेटर मेथड देखेंगे वो रिटर्न करेगा वैल्यू, उसके लिए रिटर्न टाइप चाहिए हमको, राइट. इसके लिए हमें कोई रिटर्न टाइप नहीं चाहिए. All we have to do is we have to say this dot real is equal to real. That's it. This dot real का मतलब क्या हुआ, ये वाला रियल, जब हम इसको क्लिक कर रहे हैं देखिए क्या हाईलाइट हो रहा है, ये वाला हाईलाइट हो रहा है, और जब हम इसको क्लिक कर रहे हैं तो क्या हाईलाइट हो रहा है, ये हाईलाइट नहीं हो रहा, अब केवल ये हाईलाइट हो रहा है. तो ये एक बक्सा है जो मेथड लोकल वेरिएबल है. ठीक है, अलग अलग नहीं रखते हैं, पर्पसफुली रख सकते हैं, नो डाउट, अलग अलग नहीं रह सकते हैं ताकि आप कोड देख करके रिलेट कर सकें कि ये जो वैल्यू आ रही है यही वैल्यू एक्चुअली यहाँ पे असाइन हो रही है। हाँ करेगा, सही बात है, आप चाहे तो उसको रियल की जगह एक्स डाल दें, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। लेकिन एक जो अच्छा तरीका है कोड करने का वो ये होता है कि आप नाम सेम रखें ताकि आदमी, अब देखिए यहाँ पे तो आपको दोनों चीज दिख रही है ना, अब जहां से आप यूज करेंगे वहां पे आप क्या करेंगे, उसको जैसे ही आप करके टैब या कंट्रोल स्पेस करेंगे वो आपको उसकी क्या दिखाएगा, सिग्नेचर यानी पहली लाइन दिखाएगा। पहली लाइन में ही दिखा रहा है इंट रियल, तो आपको समझ में आ रहा है कि यहाँ रियल नंबर पास करना है। जो दूसरा सेटअप मेथड देखेंगे सेट इमेजिनरी, तो उसमें देखेंगे इंट इमेजिनरी, ठीक है, तो समझ जाएगा कि अच्छा रियल नंबर पास करना है और इमेजिनरी पार्ट इसमें पास करना है, ठीक है, दैट इज मोर रीडेबल कोड, ठीक है, इसलिए नाम सेम देते हैं। अच्छा, दिस प्रॉब्लम इज कॉल्ड शेडोइंग प्रॉब्लम। क्या होता है कि यहाँ भी वेरिएबल नाम सेम है, यहाँ भी वेरिएबल नाम सेम है। अगर हम इसको ऐसे करते हैं कि यहाँ पे हम इसको डिस्टिंग्विश नहीं करते डॉट लगा करके, तब क्या होता, इस कंटेनर, ये कंटेनर है, इसका स्कोप यहाँ से लेकर के यहाँ तक है, ठीक है, जो रियल ये वाला कंटेनर है, यानी ये वाला जो वेरिएबल है, उसी वेरिएबल में अपनी वैल्यू को सेल्फ असाइन कर देगा, कुछ बात ही नहीं बनी, वही करेगा भी, राइट। अभी आप देखो, आप इसको क्लिक करो, ये क्या करेगा, इसी को सबको हाईलाइट करेगा, राइट। तो इसको डिस्टिंग्विश करने के लिए शेडोइंग प्रॉब्लम होती है, तो शेडोइंग प्रॉब्लम, प्रॉब्लम ऑफ शेडोइंग, that a parameter variable और local variable is shadowing the instance variable, ठीक है, तो नेम कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है, इसलिए हम बता रहे हैं कि भाई दिस बता के हम बता रहे हैं कि ये इंस्टेंस वेरिएबल है, ये ऑब्जेक्ट का वेरिएबल, दिस इज नॉट अ मेथड लोकल वेरिएबल, it doesn't have a scope of method, right, this is an instance variable and the variable on the right side is a method local variable which is coming as a parameter or which is being received in a parameter, ठीक है, दिस डाटा टाइप, ठीक है, क्लियर है। इसी तरह हम गेटर भी बना सकते हैं, क्या बना सकते हैं, पब्लिक, अब हमें रीड करना है, राइट, तो वी हैव टू रिटर्न समथिंग, इंट गेट लगा दिया, गेटर का मतलब गेट लगा दिया, रियल ही रहेगा, ठीक है, क्या इसमें कुछ पास करेंगे, हमें सिर्फ रीड करना है ना, तो हमें कहना है रिटर्न क्या दे, चाहे तो हम रियल दे दें, क्योंकि यहाँ शेडोइंग की प्रॉब्लम है नहीं, एक ही रियल है, बट टू मेंटेन द कंसिस्टेंसी व्हाट वी शुड डू इज वी शुड यूज दिस डॉट रियल, कोड में कंसिस्टेंसी भी होनी चाहिए, राइट, तो वी आर यूजिंग दिस डॉट रियल, अब कोड देखते को समझ जाएगा इंस्टेंस वेरिएबल को रिटर्न किया जा रहा है, ठीक है। But because we are using the IDE, we will not go to this painful process of writing the getter and setter on our own. There could be 10 or hundreds of variables and data types, right? All we will do is we'll just right click on it here. Okay, we will go to the source, right? What we did, we just right click over here in the editor pane. We went to the source option, and the source option you will see lots of options are available. There is one option which is generate getter and setters. We will click on generate getter and setters. The operation is not applicable on the current selection, क्लास के बाहर कर दिया, चलिए दोबारा से कर देता हूँ, सोर्स जनरेट गेटर एंड सेटर्स, ओके। अभी देखिए दोनों वेरिएबल आपको दिखा रहा है, अगर इसको मैं ड्रॉप करूँ तो ये मुझे ऑप्शन दे रहा है, मैं चाहूँ तो सिर्फ गेटर जनरेट करूँ, सेटर जनरेट ना करूँ, ठीक है। अब मैं इसको क्या करता हूँ, दोनों सेलेक्ट कर लेता हूँ, ठीक है, पूरा सेलेक्ट कर दिया, तो गेटर भी जनरेट होगा, सेटर भी जनरेट होगा, गेट इमेजिनरी, सेट इमेजिनरी, गेट रियल, सेट रियल, ठीक है। आई विल से जनरेट एंड ऑल आर पब्लिक, दैट्स इट। If there are hundreds of variables, all those 200 methods will generate automatically, ठीक है। तो आईडी से आपका कोड ऑफकोर्स फास्ट हो रहा है, ठीक है, आईडी का पर्पज भी यही है, ठीक है, आपको जल्दी आप क्विकली आप कर सके। सिमिलरली वी कैन ऑल्सो जनरेट कंस्ट्रक्टर ऑल्सो, ठीक है, कंस्ट्रक्टर में जब जाएंगे तो आगे देखेंगे, ठीक। तो ये तो हमने डाटा टाइप बना दिया, डाटा टाइप को यूज नहीं करा अभी तक, है ना, जैसे हम वहाँ कह रहे थे C1 से C100 हम बना रहे हैं, हमने यूज नहीं करा, ये सिर्फ स्पेसिफिकेशन है, ठीक है, इट्स अ पैसिव थिंग, राइट, ठीक है। अब हमें इसको बनाना है, मान लीजिए इसका हमें ऑब्जेक्ट बनाना है, तो लेट मी क्रिएट अ क्लास से टेस्ट कॉम्प्लेक्स, नहीं इसमें भी हम मेन लिख सकते हैं, इसमें मेन लिख सकते हैं, लेकिन मैं कहता रहा हूँ कि अगर आपके पास 1000 क्लास होंगी तो आप हर 1000 क्लास में आप मेन नहीं डालेंगे, राइट, मेन सिर्फ, हाँ सिर्फ वो क्लास होगा जहाँ से एक्सक्यूशन स्टार्ट होना है, बिकॉज मेन इज द मेथड विच इज द स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ऑफ द एक्सक्यूशन ऑफ द कोड, ठीक है, तो मेन सिर्फ एक में आप डालेंगे, राइट। या फिर अगर ड्राइवर क्लास लिख रहे हैं, ड्राइवर क्लास मतलब टेस्ट करने के लिए लिख रहे हैं, तो उसमें डालेंगे। हालांकि ड्राइवर क्लास कोई लिखता नहीं है आज के टाइम में, देयर आर लॉट्स ऑफ फ्रेमवर्क्स, वी यूज दोस फ्रेमवर्क्स, राइट? JUnit is one of the very old frameworks that people still use. There are even better frameworks also available, ठीक है? सो अब हमें यूज करना है, ठीक है? तो हम क्या बोलेंगे, कॉम्प्लेक्स, सॉरी, कॉम्प्लेक्स, स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक हो गई है, ऑटोमेटिकली दिखा नहीं रहा है। कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर C1 इज इक्वल टू, जैसे हम स्ट्रिंग को असाइन करते थे वैसे असाइन कर सकते हैं क्या? नहीं कर सकते। वो सिर्फ स्ट्रिंग के लिए और रैपर क्लासेस के लिए जावा ने ओवरलोड करके आपको दे ऑपरेटर ओवरलोड करके दे रखा है, इक्वल टू ऑपरेटर को। हम ऑपरेटर ओवरलोड जावा में नहीं कर सकते। जावा डज नॉट अलाउड ऑपरेटर ओवरलोड एट द लेवल ऑफ द डेवलपर, ठीक है? हमारे लिए वो परमिशेबल नहीं है, ठीक है? न्यू कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर, ठीक है? then C2 again, sorry, complex number C2 is equal to new complex number. So I have created two instances, right? Similarly, I can create 100 instances, right? Now let me say C1 dot set real part 3, C1 dot set imaginary part 5, C2 dot set real part 7, C2 dot set imaginary part से 11, ठीक है? हमने रियल और इमेजिनरी पार्ट चारों सेट कर दिए, यानी असाइन कर दिए, राइट? नाउ वी वांट टू प्रिंट देम। So we know that in Java, if I want to print something, I will have to print within this statement, system.out.println। इसको डाइसेक्ट करेंगे किसी दिन, ठीक है? पर अभी नहीं, ठीक है? system.out.println, इसके अंदर हम क्या कह सकते हैं, अंडर डबल कोट्स C1 इक्वल्स टू, ठीक है? ये स्ट्रिंग में लिख करके आएगा, ठीक है? C1 इक्वल्स टू प्लस रियल पार्ट क्या है, 3 है, C1 डॉट गेट रियल, रीड करा हमने, ठीक है? प्लस, सॉरी, प्लस, I don't need this double quote, right? C1 डॉट इमेजिनरी पार्ट, इसको गेट कर ले, राइट? गेट इमेजिनरी पार्ट, ठीक है? प्लस अंडर डबल कोट क्या लगाते हैं, जे लगाते हैं, 5 प्लस 7J, ऐसे होता है कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर रिप्रेजेंटेशन, राइट? कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर रिप्रेजेंटेशन कैसे होता है, इमेजिनरी पार्ट के साथ आप जे लगाते हैं ना, लगाते हैं ना भाई? मैथमेटिक्स की बात कर रहा हूं मैं, यही तो लगाते हैं ना, ठीक है? Let me copy this and repeat the same thing for C2 also. For C2 I will just replace C2 everywhere, C2 C2। भाई हम नाम सारे इसलिए दे रहे हैं ताकि हम मैथ से रिलेट कर सके उसको, राइट? डोमेन से हमेशा आपका कोड लिंक होना चाहिए रीडेबिलिटी के फॉर्म में, ठीक है? रन करें इसको, यहाँ से आप रन कर सकते हैं, रन टेस्ट कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर, आपने रन किया, C1 इज इक्वल टू 3। अच्छा, यहाँ पे गड़बड़ी करी ना हमने, देखिए क्या करा, प्लस बीच में आना चाहिए था, राइट? हम क्या करेंगे, डबल कोट, फिर एक प्लस, यहाँ पे क्या जाएगा, प्लस का सिंबल जाएगा, राइट? सही है? कंट्रोल C, देख लेते हैं, ठीक है? अब रन करके देख लेते हैं, ये होता है ना, फाइन, ठीक है गाइस? क्यों, काफी आज के लिए?